No, I'm just playing. I'd like to introduce our presenter today. This is Deborah Dyack. Deborah earned her BS in Education and MA in Adult Education in the Community College and a PhD in Instructional Technology. She has been involved with developmental education for over 20 years. She has served as the president of the Michigan Developmental Education Consortium and for the North Central Reading Association. She is co-author of Critical Reading for College and Beyond, a textbook for students in intermediate to advanced reading courses. Her work is grounded in informational processing theory and emphasizes metacognition. She currently serves as the Associate Dean of Academic and Assessment Services at Schoolcraft College in Developmental, Michigan.
Oh, that's good. Thank you. Thank you. As always, I think I have, it's an overkill, but that's all right. Welcome. Welcome. I believe that if I'm going to be teaching on some theories, it's nice to have the application. I personally don't like teaching the theory in isolation. I like to be able to teach the theories that I use in my reading classroom, but I think more importantly, you need to experience them, just like your students, and see how the theories come into play. So Linda asked me to speak, and I am very honored and excited to be a part of your professional development opportunity. I think Grand Rapids Community College, right from the minute I walked into your building, it is very progressive, very friendly, and warm, and all of you seem to be committed to reading. And I know that I spoke to some of you, you have a passion for reading just like I do. What I'm going to start out, I'm going to practice what I teach. All of you have a little card right in front of you, a little postcard, a little index card, excuse me. What I'd like for you to do is write down 2 expectations of this presentation, what you hope this presentation will address, perhaps 2 questions this presentation will answer, and I don't care if you write it out in a sentence or just put it in bullet format, is fine. And then on the back of your card, I'd like you to write your email address, your name, print your name, and if you want, you may want to put your name. I have other things that I'll send you should you want them when I present them in the conference or the presentation. And also, I'm going to use these cards for a drawing. For the 8th Habit, Steve Covey's 8th Habit, it's an outstanding book. And if you haven't read it, it's a good read, so I thought a book would be appropriate for a reading session. And I will say to the video, I apologize to you. A lot of these activities may not make sense, so I'll make sure that there's a packet of materials for you. It's very hard to video this if it's kind of out of context. And when you're done, just pass your cards to the center, please.
What did you want on the back?
Just an email address, your name. In the event that I do not address what you're asking or what you're hoping that I address, I would like to be able to respond to you. And perhaps I can't imagine that there are other handouts that you'd want, but you may want other handouts. Thank you. So also, while we're finishing up, I also want to practice what I teach. I want you to open up your M&Ms. You don't have to eat them, but dump them out and determine which one you have the most color of. And I'm going to start first. This is an icebreaker. I believe in icebreakers. I think a lot of faculty view icebreakers as fluff and that I don't have enough time, but they're absolutely crucial in creating an open environment, a warm environment. Absolutely. So I'll share mine first. When I opened mine, of course, mine came up orange, so I thought, okay, I'll be brave. When I went to ACPA, the American College Personnel Association, at the time I was director of the Commission 16, so it was an honor for me. I'd never been there. It was all exciting. When I walked in, it was St. Patrick's Day. They had a huge arch of balloons that you walk through, and they had huge pots of gold, those big golden coins with chocolate. So no one was touching them, and I thought, well, this is strange. I have 3 boys at home who would love these chocolate coins to play with, and plus they love chocolate. So I asked, may I take a couple? Yeah, take as many as you want. So I scooped these up, and people were very silent, looking at me. You're really odd. You know, who are those for? Oh, I have 3 boys. They're really going to enjoy these. So later on that evening in my hotel room, I decided I just felt like a piece of chocolate. They wouldn't miss one of the coins. When I opened it up, they were condoms. They were biscuits. So there went my professionalism right out the window, making my they're for my boys. and I know they're thinking, whoo, she is a strange mother. So anyway, we won't go through every one because I really do. We've only got such a short time, but I do want. Is there anyone who had yellow who would be willing to share the most exciting time? And truthfully, there aren't M&M police, so if you have special stories, you can share. Anyone?
I'll share an exciting time. Yellow wasn't my most, it was my least. But one of the more exciting times I've had here while teaching reading was when I had a student that really got into the word parts and, doing prefixes and suffixes and root words. And he came back to me in the halls, and he would cross his, and he'd go, I have another one. And it just
Isn't that
became
exciting?
part of the game with us, and it was just absolutely exhilarating. And
I love that story because, we've been teaching reading for years, most of us, and prefixes and suffixes are so obvious. But for students who have never been exposed to breaking down words or etymology, which we'll discuss in a little bit, that's exciting. That's a good feeling. That's why we teach. Is there anyone who'd like to share a green moment, the most frightening moment? And I should be having you introduce your names. Do all of you know each other? So I apologize.
I'm Cheryl Johnston. I work here.
Lynn Roberts. One work day, I didn't have to get up as early as usual. I was going to an in-service later in the day. But my doorbell rang very early. And I live alone, so I was rather frightened, went to the door and opened the inside metal door, but left the wrought iron screen door closed, and there was a young man who wanted to use my phone. And for whatever, powers that be that were looking over me, I said, no, I'd be glad to make the phone call for them. And I was realizing he was the newly moved-in son of the woman next door. And as he's walking away, I realize he's in his bare feet and shirt sleeves, and it's March, I think. And that was frightening enough, but, I had left the door closed. About 6 weeks later, the real fright set in when I discovered that he had murdered a woman about 5 miles away 3 hours before he was on my doorstep.
Unbelievable. Thank God for intuition.
Yes.
Oh, that is amazing. How about blue, the most rewarding? And hers was a rewarding experience as well as exciting. But does anyone have a rewarding experience they'd like to share?
Share mine. My name is Lee Kleiner, and I teach here in the biology department. And mine was back in graduate school. One of my professors went to teach in Romania and invited me to go with her. And we taught in a nursing program in the University of Romania. And just meeting those students and having all of them know English pretty well, and me knowing no Romanian words when I went there, and just having them say how, it was so invited to one of the nurses at the hospital who's working with us to do the baptism of her daughter, and just, I mean, we're in this little village, and it was just really humbling. I think I learned a lot more than the students learned in our little short session on the respiratory system.
Absolutely.
It was wonderful.
Thank you. And how about read? The best book you've ever read? Or one of a great book that you've just read? I haven't really had the time to read fiction. Most of mine have been academic.
But I just think Poison in the Bible is one of the best books I have ever.
Excellent.
Not
And
just
name, I'm
content.
sorry.
Pardon?
Your name, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, Gina Vanderhyde.
Okay.
Well, said enough of my phone.
Well, what made it the best? What made it the best book for you?
It was her style of writing, that she could put herself into the voice of 5 or 6 different women, and make it so personal and so individual, and yet they all interrelated. They were all family members, a mother and daughters. And it was just one of the best writing I've ever seen.
And I bet you could relate to it, that you could connect to at least one of the women or the,
Some I couldn't, some I couldn't at all.
Okay.
They were missionary,
wow.
which I've never experienced. But yeah, just being connected with a mother, I get that as a mother helping daughters. But just the style of writing, the voice used is powerful, incredible.
That's excellent, thank you. And if we had time in a regular classroom for your first day, you could go around and have students and actually have them do the most least of the colors. If you don't like using the candy, you can also have a packet of questions that you pass out to your students, and they can respond to the question as you go around. And we're going to explain why icebreakers are crucial. Today we're planning on, I'm going to be giving a very, very brief overview of developmental education and some of Betsy Barefoot's work. But because it's on your handout, I'm going to let you read it. I don't need to read the slides to you. They're there because I thought it's new, fresh. She just brought it from North Carolina. I don't know if you're familiar with Betsy Barefoot and John Gardner and some of their work, and also Hunter Boylan, some of his work. Explain theories and organization. And I don't mean to push this book. Obviously, you pick the textbook that works for you. However, I think it's important for me to give you the reason why I developed the book with my colleague. We teach reading and taught reading at Wayne State when this first was developed, and we found that we needed to drag 3 or 4 different books in to the classroom to get exactly what we wanted. We wanted basic skills, but we didn't want general study skills. We wanted concentration, time management, and memory as it relates to reading and how to improve reading, not just the general study skills book. So we pulled in part of the skills for that. We also found that we're working with students who are fairly good students, but they don't know how to read because they don't like to read. They pop in the video. They play video games. They don't need to read. And it's so sad, but usually at orientation I will ask students, how many of you had to read a textbook when you were in high school? I may get 1 or 2 hands, which is depressing. And then I will ask, and do this with your class, truthfully, and then I will say, how many of you read a book in the last year, 2 years, just for pleasure? You might get 1 or 2, which I think is also depressing, because as you know, the world of words is such a rich world, as you were just sharing. So it's such a missed opportunity for students. I also gave you a very small article from the American Press, and I think if you don't have it in the back, there are some extra articles from the American Press. And you know what, all of us who are in education, and who especially in developmental education, this isn't anything new, that they're telling us that students are coming to us underprepared, that students, most of the students, 51% were coming with the skills necessary for college level reading, which means 49% are coming underprepared, which we know. And we also know that 21st century skills, what employers are looking for, they're looking for students who can read and write at the college level, who can manage large amounts of information, access the correct information, and be able to draw from multiple sources, synthesize the information, and provide feedback. So students who are not able to perform at the college level with reading and writing are obviously at a severe disadvantage. So I want to discuss that. Yes? This is from the American Press. And this was just a friend who sent this, a colleague who sent this, but it is from the American Press. And I just got it because it isn't anything that we don't know. It's just one of many, many articles that you're going to see. And especially with the election coming up, there is a strong push, which I'm excited on Granholm, to really push education. That as developmental educators, we've never had that support before, ever. So to me, this is exciting. And it doesn't, and I'm not saying I'm supporting either one. I'm just saying that there are a lot of promises for developmental education, and it is exciting. I feel like we're the Velveteen Rabbits on campus, and we're finally real. Anyway, she asked me, Linda, to introduce some of the theories that I support, and my answer is yes, and I'll explain what that means. It means, is behaviorism alive and well? Yes. Even though I know we've moved into cognitivism and brain-based learning theory, do we want students to change old behaviors? Yes. Do we want to reinforce positive behaviors? Yes. So yes, we do work with behaviorism. Do we work with information processing? And that is old, but it's moved into brain-based learning theory also. Yes. Even though we know the brain is not analogous to a computer, I mean, it can be analogous to a computer. It's a way to present information in a way that's very concrete and students can wrap around it. And that is a Zen saying, wrap around it. And what that means to me, my interpretation of wrapping around something, is that the more we understand or have background experiences, the deeper our dendrites are, and the more neural networking systems we have, and the deeper and stronger we're able to wrap around a concept and understand it. When something is new introduced to a student, they don't have any connection or previously learned information, so they can't wrap around it. So I believe in information processing. Constructivism was huge in the 80s. It began to disappear, but it is alive and well. I totally believe, obviously, in constructivism. I believe in presenting theories, but not in isolation. I think that it's a missed point, that when you introduce something to a student, introduce concepts to a student, introduce it concretely, let them experience it, use all of their senses, let them have fun, and they will enjoy it and remember it. And we'll get into all of that in a minute. I also believe in metacognition. One of the things that isn't new to any of us in developmental ed, but Hunter Boylan had said that self-regulation, our students do not have the ability to self-regulate, self-monitor, which is metacognition, meaning that they keep doing the same things they've always done, even though they know they're not successful, haven't been successful, but it doesn't occur to students to change their behaviors. It doesn't occur to them to keep track of what works and to understand what doesn't work. And also to know when they know they know. And that's extremely important. So I do promote metacognition, and I do support journaling. So I think journaling is a great way. But not all faculty members like journaling, and a lot of students don't like journaling. So as alternatives, and I'll just pass these out, I have students, if they don't like the journaling, to fill out tasks that they do well, tasks that they don't do well, how do they expect to achieve certain goals, and I think these sheets are very helpful for students. I think the first thing that's important to say to students, it's not about intelligence in most cases. Now, the true reality is in some cases it may be, but it's skills acquisition. Because I know I work with students who are extremely bright, as all of you do. It's just that they don't know resources, they don't know the skills to draw upon. If something doesn't work, they don't have a backup plan. They don't know of any of the reading skills. We're going to do a lot of fun, and we're going to provide a lot of opportunities for active reading and learning strategies. This benchmark material I'm going to let you read on your own. I think it's interesting, and I think you're going to like it. But truthfully, it's something that you can read on your own, and but this just came from Betsy Barefoot, so I wanted to share it with you. I don't know if any of you use the SESI, the college, it's Student Assessment Achievement. It's, and I'm trying to think of the acronym, and forgive me, my Community College Survey of Student, thank you, of Student Engagement. And so it's based on their self-perception. And we know that, but obviously their self-perception is an important place to start, what they think. And I think working with developmental students, I think that this is absolutely critical. 55% often receive prompt feedback. I think it's absolutely critical to give prompt feedback, especially when working with developmental education students. They don't care what you're saying if they didn't get their paper back, because they're going to keep asking you, what did I get on that? Did I pass? Am I okay? So in order for them to be able to focus and concentrate on the class, it's really critical that you give feedback. And I think that this one is sad, that 15% have only discussed ideas with readings with their instructors out of class. I think that's a missed opportunity. So I don't know if you have book clubs here, or if you have structured study groups for students to participate in different classes. And it sounded like you were from a content class, biology. If you can provide opportunities where you can get maybe a lead tutor, or even if you were able to lead them during an office hour, that has been an extremely successful strategy. And I'm going to let you move on. This is us for the reading programs. Some days it feels like we're in the pot. We have a lot of pressure on us to demonstrate success. But very often we have students coming to us who are reading at 7th, 8th grade level, and in one semester we're going to get them at college level. That isn't realistic. But the thing that, as developmental educators, we wear multiple hats, and it's very difficult for us to do the research that we need to do. And I know that Hunter Boylan keeps pushing this at all of our NAID conferences, that we really do need to provide support for accountability for our programs to continue. Budget's a huge NCA with the Higher Learning Commission. They're all looking at learning outcomes. Did we teach the students what we intended to teach? One of the things that I want to stress with teaching is that we need to get away from passive learning, and I'm going to show you, and I love this saying, passive learning is an oxymoron. Students need to be engaged in the learning process, and I'm going to show you an example of passive learning.
House of Representatives, in an effort to alleviate the effects of the, anyone, Great Depression, passed the, Paris bill, the Hawley-Smoot Tariff Act, which anyone raised or lowered, raised, in an effort to collect more revenue for the federal government. Did it work? Anyone? Anyone know the effects?
So it's absolutely critical that we engage students in active learning. And from Betsy Barefoot, obviously students who are engaged are more satisfied, and plus they're going to make the connections and they're going to remember what you've taught them, the more active we can make it. Alignment of expectations and experiences, and inviting community, student commitment, institutional challenge and support, and quality teaching, and that's why your college is having a professional development day. Obviously, with reading classes, with biology classes, all of your classes, you're going to start with the end in mind. What is it that you hope or intend to teach students? What do you intend for them to walk out of from the class? So learning begins with good planning, and especially reading. And you can't see this, but it's extremely important that in reading classes or in any content class that you have explicit standards and criteria. And if you're going to give the feedback that Hunter Boylan was talking about, that we need to prove that what we're doing makes a difference in the lives of our students, because I can tell you in a reading class a student may get a D, and for many instructors that may seem like a failure, but your intervention, allowing that student to get a D, that may be successful for that student for the one semester. So that's important to note. But summative assignments, using the same assignments so that you can measure success, to see what variable made differences between classes is extremely important. Now I'm going to get into, and this, I don't know why this skipped around, but anyway, our mission is to develop the whole student. Yes, we are concerned about the cognitive, but if we don't affect the emotion and the affective side of our students, I think it's a missed point. So research has shown us, we've known this for years as educators, but just recently in the last few years, research is supporting this, that emotion does have a huge impact on student learning, that we need to avoid anything that embarrasses students, unrealistic deadlines, that you use your syllabus as a contract and you follow the syllabus, and if you do have to veer away from the syllabus, you let students know. What do you believe the number one barrier to, and if any of you have worked with Parker Palmer, you'll know this. Yes?
I'm sorry, what was your question?
What would you guess the number one barrier to optimal learning? Did you look? Okay. It's fear, which is false evidence appearing real. And I love that, and that's from Parker Palmer. He said, we have an opportunity to bridge the academic with the humanistic, and it's absolutely critical. If you expect your students to engage in critical thinking and the rigor of academia, you absolutely need to address the fear factor and make students feel absolutely comfortable in the classroom. Students need ownership, positive social bonding, and we're going to discuss how to create that, a world that makes sense, playfulness and joy. Everybody loves to play. Everybody loves to be happy and to be entertained. And if you can connect it to learning, that's excellent. And I'm not saying water anything down. I'm not saying water down the content, because you can have fun and keep it academic challenging. There should be mutual respect of students and teachers for themselves, for each other, a sense of connectedness, self-discipline, and to be a good student and to learn the strategies. It's not going to happen overnight. I was working with MCAT students in the medical school, and they would say, how can I become a better reader? Read. It doesn't come easy. You need to read. Just like if you're preparing for a marathon, you keep practicing the muscles. But once students learn the skills, it is absolutely amazing the transformation that takes place when students are empowered with skills. And that is disgusting, and I know it is, but it's just an analogy to show the point that many of the women, especially returning women, they come into the classroom thinking there's no way I can keep up with everyone, I don't have what it takes to be successful, and they end up being the greatest students. They work so hard, they're so focused. So creating an optimal learning environment, begin with icebreakers. Icebreakers allow students to see you in a different way, They allow to see each other in a different way, and they can begin making those connections with an icebreaker. So icebreakers are absolutely critical. And also the first day, you have an opportunity like no other time in your classroom to make connections on the first day. So there's just some activities for first day, which are absolutely critical. Get to know your students' names. Names are absolutely everything to a student, and they're very impressed, and they feel like you really care just by learning names right away. Also, establish effective groups. I know that collaborative learning is another theory that I totally support, because I know that students learn when they hear how other students think. But if you just let students create their own groups, optimal learning is not going to occur. And continually teach self-awareness, self-reflection, metacognition, whatever you call. What did you learn? What don't you know? What did you have trouble with? And we'll cover all that as well. Establish learning groups. And once again, I'm going to go quickly through this because you can read this on your own, and many of you probably do establish very effective groups. But it's a wonderful way for students to hear how other students think. It engages them in otherwise passive modalities of learning. It allows them to construct meaning, and it also allows them to experience disequilibrium. I used to think that everything was supposed to be comfortable, and truthfully, when students are called upon for an answer and they know they're going to be called upon, or when they're working in a group, they're responsible for information, it causes just that slight amount of discomfort where they do pay attention more and they do participate. And that was Piaget's thought with learning too, with the disequilibrium. It promotes inquiry and argumentation, which is what you want. And if you've established a safe environment, this will occur. If you have not established a safe environment, students are going to be probably reluctant to say what they really think. Promotes productive talk and teaches students leadership skills. Promotes retention of course information, which is absolutely crucial. They get to work with it. And the highest form of learning is teaching, which we will get to. And it's a great classroom assessment technique using group studies too. Best size, 5 to 6 students, and you have all of this. It's crucial that you have students take a leadership role, that someone's a leader, someone's a note taker, someone makes sure that they stay on task, and someone will give the information back to the class. There are many, many methods, and we're going to experience a couple today, but I don't want to spend a lot of time creating groups. Has anyone done a Human Likert scale? Okay, do I have 3 volunteers? I won't hurt you, I promise. This is fun. This is fun. Okay, 1, 2, 3, great. If you could stand up, and it's probably going to be best if you come up here, and I know there isn't much room, but I used to think, I wasn't sure if this was too sophomoric for students, but I've done this at all levels, and students enjoy this, and it is effective, and it works. And you're going to want to face me, because you're going to want to read on the board, when you see a statement, if you strongly, strongly agree with it, you're going to move to your left. If you could care less, you have no opinion, stay right in the middle. And if you strongly disagree, move to the right. If you kind of sort of agree, move a little bit to the left. And if you sort of disagree, move a little bit. You get the idea. It's like a Likert scale. So start in the middle. Read romance novels. Enjoy statistics. Now some would be right out the wall and some read science fiction. Now the point of this, and I want to tell you right now, is I will tell students, keep an eye on someone who always seems to be moving with you, and always someone who seems to be at the opposite end, the opposite side you're waving to. Now obviously with 3 people, it isn't going to be as powerful as if you had a whole class, but this does work. Read poetry. Read the business section of the newspaper. Well, this is pretty homogeneous, and it is because you're all instructors, so probably. Create daily to-do lists. Support euthanasia. Love to play sports. All right, now we're getting there. Love to watch sports. Now I'd be out right through the wall. Love to meditate. Love to eat chocolate. That is a personality trait. I don't know why, but it is. Love classical music. Love crowds. Love a Big Mac, shake, and fries. This is unusual. This is very homogeneous. This is love prefers dogs. Loves prefers cats.
No wonder Nancy always likes my cat stories.
Understands the Zen concept of no mind. And if any of you do, I'd like to see you after class. Thank you. That was just a demonstration of it. So our three musketeers, so thank you. That was one strategy, and not all of you are going to feel comfortable using this strategy, and I know. The only thing I can say is I was uncomfortable the first time, but when I used it, the students absolutely loved it. They enjoyed it, and it worked. It was fun, and the groups were very productive. So that's all I can tell you is that over the years it's used. Now, you might write me back, and I'll give you my email at the end and tell me, did not work. But if it didn't work, there are many, many other methods.
This is with 5 or 6 students?
I would use the whole class. I use the whole class. Oh, I just did it for presentation purposes, but you use the whole class. You have the whole class line up in the middle, and what they would do is they would walk between the aisles or however your room was arranged. But the whole class, yes.
So the end result of this was you formed groups?
Yes, yes. Now, unfortunately, they tended to move together, but in real life situations, you will have groups where people, and they may not be exactly on the opposite, but you'll have people who were somewhat opposite. So you'll grab someone who was with you, and then someone who was not with you. And the reason that it's good is because it allows the people who come to consensus too quickly, it will prevent that from happening in a group where everybody who thinks alike, they already know the answer and they move on. What are you going to do Saturday night? Or you get people who are together who are shy and introverted, and it's, I don't know, what do you think? I don't know, what do you think? And it's difficult for them. So it really helps foster thinking, actually, critical thinking.
So you take one from each group and then
Yeah, you let the groups, and it's not as clean as it sounds. Obviously, you're not going to have two who are here and two, but you can see people who tend to be not right with you. You know, that if you tend to stand in the middle, you're going to be a good one to get in someone's group because obviously you think differently. Or if you tend to be here and someone is a little bit here, that would be a good opposite. But then you also want someone who thinks like you and someone who doesn't think like you, and then to put them in a group. And if you don't like this, we do have the learning styles. And I'm not going to spend time on this because all of you know, you're going to see why I gave you a folder, but all of you are probably very well versed in the learning styles. And in the back even I have, and I should explain what this is back here, more than you ever wanted to know when you're done, activities for teaching and learning, and these are wonderful activities. And then I have a ton of professional development resources. I just had my librarians, they spent a lot of time accessing these for you, professional development bibliographies. These are awesome, so when you get a hold of these, but these have a ton on learning styles. And it covers active learning resources, assessment resources, presentation skills, gaining students' attention. So it's just a wide range, and you're going to love it. Time Magazine, 50 coolest websites that you can use for reading or research. So these are in the back as well. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time because I think a lot of you are very familiar with the learning styles. The key is, however, when you introduce this to students, if you want to introduce this as opposed to the Likert, make sure that the readers the visual get together with the kinesthetic and the listeners, because it is fascinating. It seems obvious when they're reading material, but they do see different things as being important. So mix them up. And also, you can teach or share the skills with them. Obviously, visual people, they're going to do the mind maps and use study cards and use color. The auditory, to tape lectures, pop them in the car so they can hear them. Talk to yourself. A strategy that I teach the auditory learners, and it works, is, and several of the men felt really funny about it, but I said, no one has to know. Go into your bedroom, close the door, and give a lecture on the textbook chapter that you just read. Give a lecture. If you find that you cannot give a lecture, then you don't understand the information. And if you find that you're teaching a concept and suddenly there's a huge gap, you know where to go back. And very quietly, they wouldn't own up to it in front of the class, but they'd say, it works. It does. So for auditory learners, that's a good technique. Kinesthetic, physically walk through a lesson. We've had students, we've encouraged them to sit on a stationary bike while they're reading, and it helps them focus. And also with brain-based learning, and I'm not quite sure all of it. I know it's activating the right side of the brain or the left side of the brain to allow to read, but even doing this on the tabletop will allow a student to focus if a student is a kinesthetic type learner, or sometimes with ADD. I work with ADD, ADHD also. But it's important that they connect with each other. This, if you're not familiar with, is absolutely magnificent, and I got to start. And I don't mean to move fast, but I know that all of you have a background, so I just want to share these with you. This is fun. This is an abbreviated version of the Myers-Briggs personality format. And if you would like, I did honestly make copies for all of you of the meanings for each of these. It's a very detailed meaning telling you what each number means. If you'd like it on your card, say, yes, I would like the interpretation for the... And what you can do is this takes just a few minutes in the classroom. If you don't like the human Likert scale, what they can do, and you can do this on your own, but in each column, which word best represents you. And if you come across two words, select the one that you could live with more than the other word. So let's say I was an ESTJ. I will turn it over, and I will look at ESTJ, and that is a number 7. And what this means is when you're putting together groups, you've got the extroverts and the introverts. The extroverts obviously like to think aloud, very vocal. Introverts think privately about an issue, and you may even think introverts aren't engaged when they are. That's just their style. The judgers they reach decisions too rapidly. Perceivers resist early closure. They want to make sure that they've got it right. So good combinations when you're working with students, and this is all in your packet, is to have the 1s and 2s get together with the 5s and 8s, the 3s and 4s with the 6s and 7s, and I can guarantee that most of the people, if you did the human Likert, are going to be and end up in the same groups. So it's just your preference, but this is, and I will share this with you. I got this from a summer institute. It was in California, and it's the Summer Institute. This was given to me, and I said, am I allowed to use it? And he said, well, as long as you're not, using it, publishing it, whatever, pass it along. So I'm telling you, he said freely, use it in your classroom. And this is what I thought. I did make copies for everyone. I don't know why it isn't here. But sometimes students like to read about their personality type, and I will send you one. So if you put some way, your address, if you do want the Myers-Briggs, the full version, I will make sure that you get a copy of this as well. But that is another wonderful way to create groups. This is going fast, but you were talking about words, and it's extremely important. Obviously, readers who are poor readers don't usually have a good vocabulary. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time. All of you already have vocabulary exercises. But if you can get them, encourage them to love words. That is fun. And I'm going to get some of the activities that you do right now. But what we like to do is introduce a list of words. For example, I'll give a list of words. How about kangaroo? Does anyone know what kangaroo means? Kangaroo. Do you know the meaning of kangaroo? Say no, I don't know.
No, I have no clue.
That's what it means. That is the etymology of the word kangaroo. When the English asked the Aborigine, what is that kangaroo? And he was saying, I don't know. So I think that's interesting. And then another word, Africa. The etymology of Africa, does anyone know that one? Apricot. And you can ask your students to write about the etymology. Why do you think it's called apricot? Because of the apricot fields when they got off the boats and looked and saw how beautiful Africa was. And another word, which I'm reluctant to share this with you, but I will, pumpernickel. Does anyone, that was just on the news, the morning news, and I laughed so hard with my mom, and I thought, oh, I got to share this one. Pumpernickel, it's the devil's fart, and you can edit that. You can edit that. But words are so rich, and they are so much fun. Novi, does anyone know about novi? Novi.
Oh,
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yes, my husband just shared that with me. I was like, you gotta be kidding me.
Yeah, and there's a lot of words that are created from wars, created from different cultures, different time periods. Obviously, technology has created a whole new language. But if you can get students excited, give them a word, let them select their own words and report the words back to the class. And then begin giving them techniques, how to use the words. I like to have students create word maps. I have them come up with a word of choice initially, and then we show how, when you're reading, why it's important to begin building up your vocabulary. So I have them create their own word, write it down, the original sentence, where they find the word, and then predict, what do you think the word means? This is the metacognition. What do you think you know about the word? So having them predict. And then having them actually look it up and get the actual definition and etymology whenever possible, because I think it's fun to share the origin of words. And then what part is speech, so that they can create their own sentence. And students love sharing these in the classroom. They can even give presentation, because a part of the 21st century skills that students need to be able to present information back to an audience. So it's an opportunity for students to practice and demonstrate that skill as well. And then I have students create quizzes, generated quizzes, and they love it because they're taking responsibility for the words, but they get a different perspective of the quizzes when they're generating the quizzes. So it is fun. Also, I don't have time because I've got some websites that I'm going to share with you, but that is a great website for students to be. It's free. They can access it and develop their own vocabulary using this website. So share it with your students, pass it on, and plus in your professional development packets, there's a ton of websites as well. And they're all recent. These are new websites, so they do work. We're going to go into memory. When students are working with information, we understand that it's not really a three-step process, that things are happening concurrently in the brain. We understand that if you're getting into neuroplasticity. But when you're working with students, once again, you want to make it concrete. And Martha Maxwell, some of you may be familiar with her. She was one of the leaders, the mother of developmental ed, had said that a lot of our textbooks are developed backwards because they introduce the theory first, and then they move into the concrete when they should be introducing the concrete first, providing the experience and the example, and then moving. So even though we know that it isn't quite three, it helps students, once again, wrap around the information. They can relate to it. And the thing that's different about the human brain, obviously, is that emotions affect and change the brain. The brain is constantly changing, constantly growing, and obviously a computer is not impacted by emotion. It's creative. It is constantly seeking relevancy, constantly trying to make connections. It sees what it expects to see. I'm going to say a word, and just write down the first thing that comes to your mind. Don't even think about it. Red. All right. Some of you may have seen the word red. As a reading instructor, I thought of the past tense of reading. I read a book. Did anyone think of read? All right. What did you think of?
Blood.
Blood. Did anyone else think of blood? Okay. Now, what we're doing right now is experience a freshman brain. So the blood can come over here, and this is a deeper dendrite because there's more background information. So this is a good one. The neural networking is a little bit stronger. And all my yarn, although they did it, no, that's a good thing. It's a good connection. All right, so you three are connected. This is a neural network, and it's strong because they have reinforced the concept of blood. The minute I introduced the word red, this is what they thought of. And I know a lot of you are thinking, boy, I hope she gets to the point, because this isn't making much sense. It will in a minute. What is another word? And I don't mean to choke you, so I'm just going to go.
Apple.
Hold on. Did anyone else come up with apple or a piece of fruit? Really? Oh, my goodness. This one, this student likes to eat and eat healthy. Eat healthy food. So this is very good. So this dendrite, yes, the three of you get together. Are you apple as well?
No.
Oh, okay. So this is good because this is a dendrite this deep. Now this, they wound it up for me, but I think it's not pulling out. All right. And then if you could hold that, because have that go behind your head, because you need to be a neural network. Now the dendrites are very deep in here. This student has a lot of experience. What word did you have?
Shirt.
Did anyone else have a piece of clothing?
I'm self-centered.
It's not self-centered. You've got a beautiful red shirt. What did you come up with?
Stop.
Stop. Okay, did anyone else have the stop? Meaning, well, that's a good one. All right, so you're alone. Not a lot of experience, but it's there. Sorry. If it's normally, I could just pull this out. And what did you come up with?
Color.
All right, so you actually saw the color red, or the word color came to your mind?
I saw the color.
Okay, very good. Well, I'm going to pull another part of the brain. This is really a freshman brain. This is totally. What did you think of?
Well, this must say something about my impatience, because when I see red, when you said red, I want it green. I want to go.
Okay, all right. So if I could get this to you, you'd be holding this too. The point is that Gagne has said when you are going to introduce a concept to your class, especially a reading class or biology class, you want to gain attention immediately, because this is a typical freshman brain. The minute you introduce a concept, a student is going to hear a word and the brain will make 50,000 connections concurrently. So if you think that the student is focusing on what you're saying, unless you make it active, engage the student, or even telling the student, this is on the test, the very first day, the very first thing. So the more connections a student has, the deeper the dendrites were. Obviously, the student is going to access that more clearly, and the student will be on the same page. But if a student knows nothing about what you're introducing, you may lose the student. And you know what concepts you introduce where most students have difficulty. So those are the concepts you really need to engage students in active learning. And thank you very much, my freshman brain. That was excellent. Okay, we all know that learning gathered through the senses, and this supports brain-based learning. The next thing I want you to see, don't follow along in your handout right now. And some of you as reading instructors have already seen this, but this just proves the point. What did you see? What did you read? And some of you may have seen it before. Okay, Paris in the Spring. Did most people see Paris in the Spring except for those who have seen it? Who's seen this before? Okay. Did you read Frank Smith's book?
No.
I'm reading? Okay.
I've seen it, so
Okay. Paris in the spring. There are two thes. The brain is always seeking relevancy, making connections, so it dismisses the second thought. It doesn't expect to see it. It doesn't need to see it. That's why students have a lot of trouble proofreading their own papers. That's why we have trouble. The brain sees what it expects to see. Now I'm going to need a volunteer for the next one. You may have seen this on the internet, and I've changed some of the words. Is there anyone who's willing to read this?
According to research at Cambridge University, it doesn't matter in what order the letters in a word are. The only important thing is that the first and last letter be in the right place. The rest can be a total mess, and you can still read it without problem. This is because the human mind does not read every letter by itself, but the word as a whole. The brain sees what it expects to see.
Context clues. Context clues. Even though the words aren't spelled, the brain is constantly seeking relevancy. This makes sense. This fits. And I'm going to show you a word. What is this word? Not William. It isn't a word that my brain can wrap around because I don't use this word. I never use this word. But it's the same exercise. The difference is no context clues. Willowa. Okay. The short-term memory, when students are first learning, and there are some classes, biology, math, where you simply have to learn lists of things, whether you want to or not, and there are ways to learn it effectively. But students need to say, I intend to learn this. That is extremely important for students to understand. They need to purposely pay attention to details. And I can say, if you meet people at a party, when I was younger anyway, not anymore, but I would remember the good-looking guys. Sorry, I know the young man in the back taping this, but I would remember remembering certain people's names. As I got older, if someone was my boss-to-be, I was interviewing for a job, I remembered the names because I had to intend. I purposely had to pay attention. But if you're not paying attention, you can go into a room and you're introduced to 50 people and you don't remember. The same thing occurs, obviously, in learning. So on the back of your sheet of paper, without looking in your book, and don't look at your handout, list as just flip over a sheet of paper, list as many details as you can about a penny. There's absolutely no reason for you to remember. There was no reason for you to intend to learn this. Even though you see one every day, chances are and I apologize, I am rushing through this because I probably have 85 more exercises that I want to share. But I'm just going to show if anyone came up with all of them. But there's absolutely no reason for you to understand or remember this at all. Did anyone have all of those? Did anyone have most of them? Did you?
No, I didn't have time. I only got 5.
Oh, okay. Did anyone have more than 5? Well, that's awesome. Did anyone have more than 6? You had 7?
Well, kind of.
It's all right.
I mean, I put down round and circles, so I'm stretching it.
Did you have 7? That works. It works. Okay. There you go.
You're trying to get me
Thank you. But the whole point, of learning is that when students are learning, they need to intend to learn. And also with learning, it's extremely important for students, I can't tell you, and I bet you have it in all of your classes. Oh, I had this class already in high school. I already learned this in high school. Well, you need to tell students they need to learn to empty their cup. I'm a martial artist, and in our practice, I don't care how much you know, every time you walk into the dojo, you bow in, and you learn as a beginning student. And if students would empty their cup, you can tell them, yes, you may have learned the most important points from the other instructor's point of view, but you just may learn something from your class as well. So it's important because they will miss important information. If you've already seen this exercise, don't participate, but if you haven't seen it, what do you see? Okay, so it's Socrates, an old man, or Bacchus with the leafy. Does anyone see anything differently? All right, now this is what happens when students come to a class and they don't empty their brain. They say, I already know it. They're prepared for the exam to cover the leafy man. We call him the leafy man. And all of a sudden I'm saying, what did you think about the two lovers under the arch of leaves? What? If you look, you'll see two people kissing. Here's their arms. And here's his hat. And here's a cape. That's why I like to use it. Most of the people have seen The Witch and the Old Woman. We use that a lot. So I try to get something a little bit different. But the reason I like to use this with students is because they get the, oh, aha, I get it now. Why I should pay attention, why I should focus, because the instructor may be giving you a supplemental reading on the old man, the leafy man, for example, but test you on the other, assuming that you know the whole piece of information. And I think that students are so used to, and forgive this phrase, but operating in an academic bulimic style where they just learn, regurgitate, move on. They have to understand that they have to begin especially learning your information for the foundation of the rest of their learning. It's no longer in and out. They need to truly apply the skills and understand what they are learning. Okay, if you see this, and we're not going to spend a lot of time on that. How many of you remembered all of the letters? Exactly. First of all, it's like, who cares? So what? There's no reason to learn the information, so your brain isn't going to intend to learn. It's like the penny. That was ridiculous. Forget it. Many of the students will remember the beginning. Many will remember the letters at the end. That's called the Regency effect. That's the same thing that occurs when students are reading their textbooks. If they are not given strategies and skills, and if they read straight through instead of asking questions and engaging in the textbook, they'll remember the beginning, the end, the whole middle is a blur. And that's what happens. Did anyone see that? Okay, the first one, there were 57 letters. Sorry? Did anyone see anything on that one? All right. So even if you got Queen hiccuped, you've increased the number of letters that you remembered from the first one. And why? It was a word you knew. It was organized in a meaningful way, but you didn't understand or remember the whole sentence. Why? It was nonsense. It was all mixed up. Does anyone see that one? Okay, so students, or if the letters were pieces of information that they organized, that they grouped into meaningful clusters, they just went from maybe learning 2 or 3 to 15 up to 57. So organizing information in meaningful ways is absolutely crucial if students are going to remember information. That's why outlining, mind maps, and also using matrices are a really good study strategy for students to be, especially in biology. If when they're reading, if they can begin looking at how information is presented, how it's the same, how it's different, you just pass that on back. It's extremely important. Students need to do something with information. And many of you probably already use Miller's chunking theory, where it's between 5 to 7 items that you can remember. So the more they can put groups of information in like groups, the easier it is for students to remember the information. Now I'm going to have you can get in teams, you can do this independently if you'd like. I'm going to have you read the Pox citation of Zaxquiff. And you can do it, it doesn't matter, but it's fun to get into groups. But go ahead and read this. Here's another one. And when you're done reading it, in your groups, in your teams, go ahead and answer these questions.
ready.
And this is how some of the textbooks look to students. And normally we'd spend a lot of time with this, so forgive me. I'm just going to keep moving along. But just to stress the point, this is a great exercise to share with your class, talking about the need to understand what it is. Whatever you're reading, you cannot remember what you don't understand. Now, number one, why is it important to know about it? Absolutely, excellent. You got the right answer. Where is it poxitated? Excellent. How is it quaseled? Yes. Yes. And then bracterate to, yeah, you got it. Excellent. And then what is it? It's the Arizatanians gristellated large frillatanda of Fevon, and then bracterate to quasol it. And what is it? All right. All of you, if this had been a homework assignment to answer the questions at the end of the chapter, you all got 100%. Students are gifted at looking up context clues. They can find the answers. They can go right through. Do they understand it? No. So if you find that your students are getting A's on all of their homework assignments, and then you give the exam, and they fail, they didn't understand the content. So it's absolutely crucial, and that can't be stressed enough with your students. If you don't understand it, your brain cannot wrap around it. You have no neural networking. You have no spread of activation. So when the questions are presented, if you had been given this information without the use of this handout, it means nothing. The words are all make-believe. It means nothing. But this is true also. So when you're teaching about comprehension and the need to understand, the need to use language from the discipline, and this is another exercise for language, and I know this is an overkill, and I apologize, but it really is important that students learn the language of every discipline, and we can teach that in the reading class. You can promote that in your class. It's important. Also, it's important for students, as they are reading information, as they begin thinking about the information, to organize it in very meaningful ways. And this is another exercise. The minute you get it, go ahead and begin completing set A. And once again, we're going to go quickly through this, and I apologize for the speed. But these are fun exercises to share with your students to make everything concrete. Why the need to organize information? Oh, absolutely. Well, help yourself to anything in the back. Yep. We're just going to do this together for the sake of time, because quite honestly, I have 50,000 exercises that I want to share with you. Okay, if we're going from our brain, is right to left, name a fruit beginning with the letter P. Beautiful. Peach, plum, pomegranate. An animal beginning with the letter D. Beautiful. A metal beginning with the letter I. Beautiful. Bird, B. Country. A boy's name. Girl's name. Beautiful. Vegetable beginning with the letter P. Potato, pea, parsnip. A weapon. And a flower beginning with the letter P. All right. Now we're going to do set 2. The words are just as easy, but our brain is not used to accessing information from right to left. We're asking, some cultures do, but our culture, we do not access information backwards. So Let's go through this list. A fruit, ending. Peach, very good. An animal, crow. A metal, silver, copper. And a lot of people go, it was on the tip of my tongue. That's what students go through when they say, I honestly prepared for this test. It's because they didn't organize information in a meaningful way. A bird ending with the letter N. A country. Good. A boy's name. A girl's name. Robin and Doreen. A vegetable. Carrot. Beet. A weapon. Bow, arrow, and I did have a student who said chainsaw, and then I did make a referral to counseling. Yeah, but I accepted it. How about a flower? Anyone get? You win. That is awesome. You win. This lights up as you write with it. So that is a concrete way. And I want to get to that Halloween store item, I do. And then you can read that with long term. And this is a really good pyramid to share with your students, that this is why we have tutoring, this is why we have collaborative learning, this is why we work in groups, is because if students do nothing else but attend a lecture, after 2 weeks they'll remember 5%. If they have a discussion group, 50%. If they practice by doing something, 75%. Teach others, 90%. Word clues, and I'm not going to spend a lot of time because I think all of you already cover word clues. The word clues, we have a lot of exercises that if you want them, you can write on your, but comparison, contrast, listening, analysis, cause and effect. A lot of students don't understand that those words are signposts. Those are guiding words that help direct students to understanding the information. In a biology class, if you have sequence, if you have listing, it really helps students organize the information in meaningful ways and understand it. So it's important that you discuss word clues at some point. Main idea and supporting detail exercise. Once again, we can get into teams, and if you don't want to get into a team, that's okay. I start out really, and very simply, I start out with just strips of concepts, and then you can actually work up into larger essays. And this is fun, and it gets challenging. This one isn't so challenged, but I want you to experience it. Are you three going to work together? Sure. All right. So you have your strips. And your strips are going to be, now you can even have students identify what the main ideas would be, so they would write their own, but you're going to divide them into two separate main ideas. Either all Americans are either immigrants or descendants of immigrants, or Europe has an excellent transportation network. So take your strips and and just divide up the strips. And for the person videoing, what I will do is make sure that I have a packet available in the resource room for you.
By dividing, we didn't do it together. We did it. We each took our own thing. Yeah, and my kids do that all the time. I don't discourage.
Yeah, it would have been a lot slower to do it. I was just saying this was a little more speedy.
Oh, and we're going at the rate. It's ridiculous the speed we're going through this, but this is just to expose you to it. Okay.
But I think that they'll each take a chunk, they'll do it, and then the other one will just copy it. It doesn't pass through the brain.
All right, now, can you organize this as
And truthfully, what you're saying, I would have each student do this separately.
Yes.
I wouldn't.
And now we're going to organize it by...
And you may find that some don't fit.
Yeah, now we just organize it by group.
Oh, so we all.
So some of you have already got to the point where you come across a strip and it doesn't fit. It doesn't quite fit the main idea that's listed on your packet. So make sure you're reading what it's supposed to be related to, what that detail is supposed to be supporting. If the detail doesn't support directly that main idea, perhaps it's a different paragraph. This becomes the challenge for students.
All right, yeah,
Nothing to do with transit. Cars have a better
Yeah.
repair record.
yeah, here we go.
Air travel is generally safer. In the United States, that's not Europe.
But this is European.
But
Cars,
we're talking
never
about
mind.
American cars, we're not talking
I already got your thing. Aha.
Oh, I need help always. This is for you. I'm going to give you the answers in just a minute to show you.
I did that without realizing it.
Oh, it is. You know what? If you want it, put it on. I'll give the cards back, or I'll give you more. Yeah. But this, but this is a fun exercise for students to start understanding connections. That maybe everything isn't relevant that they thought was relevant.
Here's my card.
Oh, thank you so much.
Yes.
Yeah, you want to be in the drawing.
Oh, I do.
All right, because of the sake of time, obviously, you would allow your students the time to process because space and time are absolutely critical in learning, but because you're teaching this, I just want to go through this with you. You may have found that some didn't fit. Some of the strips you weren't sure where to put. How about Europe has an excellent transportation network? Which didn't seem to fit?
Air travel in the U.S.
Exactly. So that was one that would be a different paragraph. How about in the second set?
Many residents of Northern Europe.
Well, immigration service employs a large force of people.
That one is true. Many residents of Northern Europe. That would be a different paragraph, probably telling where they came from. And then the American Indians have made great contribution to the arts. And then the U.S. Immigration Service, right, employs a large force. So yes, those wouldn't be relevant, and then you could discuss this. And then the next step, you could introduce a larger essay, and either you could cut it in strips or by paragraph and have them piece the paragraphs together. Another clever thing that a colleague of mine does is she'll have a PowerPoint presentation on a concept and have students put the slides together in a meaningful way. And also, another thing, this is a little bit different, but using videos. I don't know if any of you use movies where you have the English at the bottom, the subtitles. It's a wonderful way for students to, especially if it's a movie that they know, it's a relevant movie, but they have to read. And anytime students are encouraged to read, it's good. Or put pieces together, it's really good. Okay, now I'm segueing. I know this is fast, so forgive me. Oh, the one thing that you have on there, which I'm sorry, that free resource, it's literacy.org. Students are able to go into this, practice readings, identifying main ideas and details, and it's all free. So encourage your students to use that free access. This is a fun way, and probably all of you are already doing this, to teach when students are first learning about inference, meanings. First, I introduced a song, my colleague and I, and this is from Les Miserables, and it's the one song, if any of you have seen it, and if students haven't seen it, that's good too, because then they really have to dig deep into the meaning. But it is religious, and it is a spiritual moment where the priest has saved the man. And I'm not going to play the whole song, but you get the idea. So auditory learners love this, and they can bring in their own. So you can have them read the words, touch the paper, and listen. Anyway, and then I just skipped cartoons. I just want to show you another way that's wonderful. I love cartoons. Cartoons are a wonderful way to develop inferential reasoning skills. So look at the cartoon, and I thought that this was timely. And I had students go through the cartoon, and I'll tell you what they came up with. I asked them about this cartoon. What is the main idea or implied punchline? And then I also want to know what were some of the details. So just like a paragraph, just like an essay, it has a main idea, and it has supporting details to support the idea. All right. Granholm and DeVos are so busy slinging mud at each other that neither one is taking a stand on the real issues. Even a child can see through the piles of garbage. Education, children's education, is where they should take a stand. The future of Michigan. Some of the details. They're slinging mud at each other. A minority child is asking how they're going to help. It's an elementary child. It's elementary to see what's going on. They're not approaching the real issues. Both candidates are separated from the real issues where the child is standing. The message is loud and clear, a strong voice. The candidates are not saying anything at all. Both candidates not really seeing what's going on. They're too focused on the next bucket of mud. The mudslinging is a waste of time. The piles are so big it will take buckets and buckets to get through all of it. Nicknames on their buttons, making them seem like they are approachable, like they're nice people. However, they are typical politicians, which I thought that was a good one. In spite of all the mudslinging, they aren't getting dirty, which I thought that was good. They're wasting time and avoiding the real issues. So they came up with some really good insight, and these are fun. You can use political cartoons to help students stay abreast of current activities, and they love it because they love being able to talk about it with other people.
So you just hand out the cartoon and then you have them write the
We have
main
two.
idea?
Absolutely. The first thing is, what is the implied main idea or the punchline? What is the main idea? What's the purpose of this whole cartoon? How do you know? What are the supporting details? And then you can say it's analogous to a piece of writing, but instead the artist is doing it visually as opposed with, instead of using words. Yes?
Yeah, I was going to say, one of the things that I do in the upper level classes, I have students bring in 2 cartoons, and then we switch them around, and then we do a whole interpretation of what people have brought in.
Oh, it is so much fun, and they love it, don't they? They love it.
That's really good.
Okay, and I don't know how I got so far back, and I am sorry. Then for, I don't know why this is doing, I'm going backwards, and I'm sorry. But another thing I do is I have a birthday party. It's called, and I don't know if any of you have used the exercise, the birthday party. Oh, I didn't get to the murder mystery yet. Oh. All right, we'll do the murder mystery. I'm sorry. All right. This will be fast. Take 1 minute just to look at this. And once again, your brain is going to say, this is stupid, so what? What is the meaning? Well, that has a lot to do with learning, so keep that in mind. But just look at this. Do any of you use the SQ3R or the PSR where you preview, study, read, and review? Okay. Okay, look at the... All right, flip it over. And this is, we normally wouldn't go this fast, but... All right, what time is it? Okay, 8:30, 8:31. What's the date? It's at the bottom. It's December 21st. And how many animals, either real or pictured? There are 6. And what is going to happen to the policeman? What accident is he going to encounter? On the what? Ice cream. Yeah, it's hard to see. It's hard to see. So you're going to want to get a clear picture, but this will stress the meaning in a minute to you. How many arrows are pictured? There's 7. And what is being dropped, and I don't know if you can see it in your, I had to change this to make it more politically correct. I created this years ago, and over the years as it happened, it became, so you may not want to use this exact same picture. You can use any picture. Well, anyway, I'm going to ask a series of questions. Is the lottery ticket tacked or taped? And once again, who cares? Okay. And let's see. Who do you think is the murderer? Well, it's actually the man with the bass, because how many strings are on it? There was just 1 string on it. So, if I would have asked you all the questions first, do you think you would have done a better job?
Yeah.
Why?
We know what we're looking for.
Exactly. Then why don't students read the questions at the end of the chapter? And when they get this, it's a big aha goes off, because you've made it very concrete. You can tell them that it really is useful. You engage your brain. The brain's going to be looking for the questions. Well, after they do either the murder mystery or whatever picture you want, you can use any picture you want. It really makes it concrete. And I've had students say, you know what, I've been told to use SQ3R or PSR, whatever acronym, all my life, but it didn't make sense until I did this, because, yes, I would have had all the answers had you told me what I was looking for up front. So that's a nice way to make that very concrete.
Do you give the students a certain amount of time to look at this?
Yes.
How much time?
I usually give them 2 full minutes, which is a long time when you're, and you can let them, because they're not going to be looking at what you're going to be asking. They're going to be
so then
looking.
you don't leave it up while you're asking questions, obviously.
Right. This one I'll just say, it's a prisoner's dilemma, and you can use any essay that you want, but I have students use index cards and go through and organize it according to the cue words or methods, the author's methods of organization, and they have piles of cards, and then when they put their cards together, they will come up with the whole overall organization. So we don't have time for that one. Oh, and I know lunch, and I'm sorry. I'm standing between you and lunch. There is an exercise, and I'm just going to give it to you, but I'll share it with you. And if we had time, it's so much fun to do. I would give 1/2 of the room selection B, but it would be the same reading, and then the other half of the room, and you can pick these up because these are fun. Students go, oh, how did they know all the answers? And then I give this one without any notes on it. This one has annotated notes. We teach students to take annotated notes. It saves lots of time when they're studying, but a lot of them say, I don't have time to make annotated notes. Well, then I'll ask a series of questions. All the questions are exactly following the annotated notes. So this side of the room usually feels like I'm cheating because, yeah, I know that the answers are right here, and they come up with all the answers. And this side, they're like, how did they get that so fast? They're going back to read, and then they realize that the use of this one had annotated notes, and it makes all the difference. So this is a nice way to explain this. If you'd like a copy of that, feel free to take it. Fortune cookie. Oh, my goodness, I didn't even get to this. All of you might will want to take one. Honestly, I was just in Washington, D.C. yesterday and got these in real Chinatown. The only thing, I know they're stale, but if you want to take one, how I use it when I'm teaching argumentation and fallacies, I have students pull them out. This one, a friend asks only money for your time, or a friend asks only for your time, not your money. How can I turn this into an argument? Well, Joe asks for money, therefore Joe is not a friend. Okay, great. And then the next person can do one, and they go through. Now, some students may come across one, and it's really difficult and challenging. Give them another cookie, because this is just the beginning phase of learning argumentation, creating fallacies, and what's valid and not valid. But these are really fun to use, and you'd probably take a half hour. You wouldn't take 2 seconds. And I wanted to get to the brain. The birthday party, oh my goodness. I bring in a cake, and this exercise, I know this is just so much, but this is a fun, fun exercise. It's Catherine Brush's story. It's short and sweet, but when you first read it, you're going to think, that man, he's a dirty dog. But when you read it and really get into the story, you're going to see that there may be a different perspective. This is the actual exercise. You have the class read it, have them break into two teams. One side is going to defend, sympathize with the man. One side is going to sympathize with the woman. And it is amazing based on this story, and I'll quickly go through what they came with. Well, you know what? I don't have time to, so just take what the students came up with. It is awesome. It is awesome. So share that. But it's fun. Students love it. We have a cake, and I even light the candle, and it sings happy birthday, and we get to cut the cake after. But it turns into a mock court. And so they give their side, their version. They're allowed to use fallacies, and if they use a fallacy effectively, they get an extra point. If the other team detects that it's a fallacy, they get a point as well. And they also get points for the details that they come up with, and students love it. They love the cake, they love the fun, but it's very challenging. I mean, they have to go through, and they really like playing the lawyer, and it really is wonderful for inferential reasoning. Also, I have a whole list of classroom assessment techniques. It's so important for you to understand, did your students, did they understand what you intended for them? Because I've had the best class sessions, but students didn't get it, and then I had sessions I thought they didn't get it, and it was because there was a death among the group, or something sad happened. But anyway, these are fun. These are all in the back. The minute paper is probably the most popular, the muddiest point. Now, I do a brain toss. So I did get to go to the brain, and I just shared with some of the people that came in that right now it's Halloween, so brains are plentiful, but they're great. When students see this in my class, it's like, oh no, it's a brain toss. And what I do is I will start out, normally I have a brain, but I'm going to use the class. I will start out and I'll say, what was one of the most important things that you learned today? And I'm going to throw it to you. You answer one thing that you may use from this presentation or one thing that you learned, and then pass it on. But before I start it, when they see this, they know. It's the brain toss.
Oh, it's so cool. Here we go. Oh, I did.
Oh, you said, oh, okay.
Yeah.
For her, it's going to Michael's to get a brain. But students love it. It's fun. And the brain toss will keep them on their toes throughout the class, because they know if there's a brain toss that they are responsible for answering something. You can ask a question. You can have students answer your question, and then they can ask their own question. You can do it any way you want. So what is something that you might use?
The paying attention to details kind of picture.
And then...
Who's watching? Oh, goodness. I don't know how I could begin. I'm overwhelmed. I can't pick one right now. I'm overwhelmed. It's all wonderful.
Oh, thank you.
I love the fact that we thought we were so smart when we were doing that envelope thing, and then we found out we weren't reading very carefully.
I love the envelope thing and the suggestion about doing the lecture slides too. I think that could really work in some of my complicated stories and anatomy.
That's awesome. We're going to stop with you, and you get to keep the candy. And I want to tell you, I'm going to do a drawing right now, but thank you so much, all of you. And I'm sorry we had to go so quickly through all this, but I have everyone's card.
Do you have a copy of your book here? I'd like to look at it.
I do. I know this is shameful. It's like it isn't meant to be, but this is a passion, and it's an exercise.
I would like to tell you that I have her book, and that was the one that I presented to us last year at my student's fest.
Oh, thank you. Well, thank you for trying.
It's very, there's a copy in our...
I will say the reason we also wrote it is because the readings, if you noticed, are different.
Yes.
The readings, I'm so excited with my colleague because she helped me pick some juicy readings. And if you want students to be passionate and really get engaged in critical thinking, you have to have different readings. And we've got some very provocative readings in there that covers, so, all right. Nancy Jones. Oh, congratulations.
Oh my gosh, this is my day.
Congratulations.